Hello, today we're going to talk about cameras and the technology that's involved with them, and we're going to talk about how to choose the best camera for yourself, and I'm going to also give you my 2 cents on the cameras that you see in front of me right now. This is the Nikon D7000, the Nikon D5500, the Sony A6000, and the Canon 70D. Okay, what you want to do is start off by creating a checklist. It's just my opinion, I think it's a good idea, but create a checklist for yourself to determine the best camera for your needs. A good way of doing this is to get yourself a piece of paper and write on there the things that are important to you. So maybe it's that the camera does video, maybe it's that it's compact, takes good pictures, needs action shots, etc., etc., etc. What you want to do is next to each item, give a weight to it, like 1 to 5, for example. And what you want to do is when you go out looking for a camera, go down your list and see if that camera has those features on it, and then give a weight to it, give the score, you know. And when you're done, after you look at 5 or 6 cameras, you should be able to total the score up at the bottom, and it'll help guide you towards the camera that's going to be best suited for your needs. So from my perspective, let me just give you a little bit of background. About 20 years ago or so, I used to shoot a lot of photography, and I used to do so professionally, and I used to shoot with film-based cameras. I did a lot of weddings and events, and when the digital camera started coming around, there were a lot of people who used to do photography who used to think, no way, there's no way that the digital camera will match that of traditional film-based cameras. And I was kind of one of those people, but as technology took off, I remember my first digital print, and it was an 8x10 print, and I used an Olympus 2 megapixel camera. And what's funny is that the clients that I did the work for, I only took just a handful of pictures with that camera, and everything else was film based, but they absolutely loved those pictures. You got to think that clients are not pixel peepers. They're not going to magnify an image and go, ooh, I see a little bit of noise over here. The people who do that are generally the photophilies. Those are people like you and me. If you're watching this video and you're really into photography, then we tend to get caught up in the noise of an image, and we really we scrutinize that image more than anyone else. And you need to really evaluate what you're going to do with the pictures. Now, over the years, I currently work in technology today. I do a lot of entrepreneurial things, but I really don't do photography much anymore. I do it as a hobby. I mean, I do it because I enjoy it. I don't have people paying me for my pictures, at least not often. And when you think about what a professional photographer is, in my opinion, it's someone who does it day in, day out. They get paid for their work, and they use that money to pay their bills. That's just my opinion on a professional photographer. I know of a lot of people that go out and they always ask, what's the best camera for me? And they'll go out and typically get a DSLR of some sort, and they'll put it on fully auto mode, and that's where they leave it, and they go around and shoot some pictures. And I think to myself, you're missing out on 90% of what that camera is capable of. Keeping in mind as well that the quality of a good picture is not so much in the camera itself as it is the skills that the photographer brings to make that camera do what it can do. And a lot of it is in the composition. I think if you had 100 professional photographers all in the same room and you gave them some entry-level camera, I think you'd come away with some really cool pictures. I really do. But with all that said, I'm going to talk just a little bit about the cameras that I have here and give you just my opinion on it and just my 2 cents. I think there are a lot of awesome cameras out there. I think with each camera there are pros and cons, and let's just jump right into it. This is the Nikon D7000. This is my mainstay camera. This is the camera that I've been using for years, and this right here is an 18-200 zoom lens. It's the VR. It's the Nikon zoom lens. Now, this is when I go on vacation, you go on trips, this is my camera of choice. Now, I also have a fixed 50 millimeter, I think it's 1.4 or 1.8 lens, and that's great if I'm doing some action shots, or if I really want to create some blur in the background, I'll use that lens. Again, it's a great lens. I've also shot with a Nikon D600, which is it's not in front of me here, but the 600 is a full sensor camera. It's a great camera as well. It uses a different set of lenses. You could still use your DX lenses here, but you're not going to take full advantage of the full sensor. But nonetheless, this is my mainstay camera. This is the one I've been using for years. It's heavy, it's solid. Now when I say heavy, I don't necessarily mean heavy in a negative way. Some people really like the solid feel of a camera. So, and I kind of like that as well, but you know, that's what this camera is all about. So, you know, this camera, as I mentioned, it's kind of old, but if you look at the back of it, it does not have an articulating screen. It's not touch screen. But what it does well. It'll also take video, but the video is, you know, I actually shot some video with it last year, and I really like the quality behind it. However, you know, I'm the kind of person, and I'm shooting this video with a Panasonic camcorder, you know, nothing special. But the reason I really like the camcorder is because when I'm out and about with family, or, you know, you're at a sporting event, you're on vacation, you know, sometimes it's just nice to be able to quickly pull out a camera, video camera, and just grab that moment without really having to get caught up in the manual focus and a manual zoom. So, you know, it's great quality on the video, don't get me wrong. It's just, you know, my personal needs, like we talked about that checklist, you know, for me, I'm looking for video that's going to be quick. It's going to be easily accessible. So, again, great camera. This is the Nikon D5500. Now, this video is not meant to get into a lot of depth and show a lot of pictures and really get the specifications out. There are already so many videos out there that can break down any one of these cameras. Some people have done some phenomenal jobs out there, so hats off to them. This is really to kind of show you an array of the cameras and give you my 2 cents. Now, the thing I really like about this is you do have the articulating screen on here. So screen comes out, it'll tilt up, tilt down, and it can also tilt, you know, back at you. Now, what's nice when it comes back at you, it's not just for selfies. I kind of got my own thought on selfies, but the thing I like about that is that you can compose a picture when you're able to see it. So you can be in front of the lens and compose the picture if you're in that picture. And when you do video, it's great for that as well. It also has touchscreen on this camera, which I really, really like. This is just the typical lens kit that's on here. I went out and shot a handful of pictures with this, and picture quality is great. Don't have any issues with that. This does have a video capability on it. The video is good. However, this is just my opinion, all right? But the video autofocus hunts. So, you know, it will track, but, you know, it's just the nature of this beast, and this beast over here is that when the focus kicks in, it's trying to figure out where to focus. So usually it jumps back, then jumps forward and settles in the middle, and it's slow, and I mean, that's part of my challenge here. Now, if you're a professional videographer, you might say, well, you don't need autofocus. Again, on my checklist, I need it. I do like the manual focus, don't get me wrong, but when you're trying to grab like a family event and the vacations, things like that, you know, I like to be able to zoom and have it autofocus, because if you're trying to manual focus and zoom at the same time, not going to happen. Now, some people will say, well, you know, the thing is you don't record the zoom. So, you know, the thought is that you zoom in, hit record your shot, and then, you know, stop the recording, zoom out, and then record again and kind of go on from there. I like kind of those shots where I'm at a wide angle, and then I zoom in on my subject, or I'm in on the subject and I zoom back out. You know, think about birthday parties, things like that, where you might start off with someone like blowing out the candles on a cake, and then I like to zoom back out and get everyone in the room. So that's just kind of what I do, right? So this right here is the Sony A6000. Now, this camera, the thing I think is really awesome about this is mirrorless. Now, I know there are a handful of people out there who are diehard SLR fans, right? And It kind of takes me back to the time of when people were really holding on to the film-based cameras. Again, I was one of them. But I do think that the future will slide towards mirrorless, although I don't see the SLR going anywhere. You know, I think you'll have a newer generation kind of gravitate towards the mirrorless, but the SLR, you got to think these Nikon and Canon, they're in business to meet the demands of the consumer. So if the consumer demands this type of body, that's what they're going to keep producing. It's that simple. And you know, the reality is when you pick up, well, especially this D7000, it's just heavy, it's meaty, it's weighty, and sometimes I like that. I like the feel of this thing. You know, this thing is, you know, it's nice. When you pick this up, it's really small and tiny, which also has its advantages though. I mean, you're not having to lug around this thing, and you can get same quality images right here. Now, is that debatable? Yeah, sure, you know. To, you know, 99.99% of the people who look at pictures, they would never ever know a difference. And the reality is, you know, the tracking mechanism on this, I think, is awesome. They packed a lot of technology into this camera. This camera it's just sweet. Now, this does not have a touch screen on the back, and again, this is the A6000, but it does articulate, so it can go up and it can go down. The one thing this does not do is flip back. So forget the selfie, forget the self-composure. Although I do have a few thoughts on that, and I might come up with another video later. As I mentioned, I'm an entrepreneur of sorts, and what I can see happening is putting a mirror up here fashioning a mirror in some way, so that way, when you're looking at the camera, you should be able to look up and kind of self-compose. It's kind of what I'm thinking anyway. But the one challenge to this camera, again, it's just my opinion. I love the focusing mechanism on here. It's fast, it's quick, and it is noiseless. So when this goes to autofocus, you're not going to hear any hunting. It's silent. What you do hear with this camera is the zoom. So if you do a little bit of research on this, you'll see that other people have chimed in about that and how that is problematic. Again, you know, if you're a videographer, some say, well, you just don't record the zoom. Well, again, on my checklist, I want to be able to record the zoom. The onboard mic definitely picks up on it, and this also has the ability with the hot shoe at the top to create, you can put an external mic on here. It does not have a port for the external mic, okay, so if you have an external mic, you know, you don't have a mic in, but this is a multifunctional hot shoe. So Sony sells a microphone that fits into the hot shoe here, and unfortunately though, that microphone picks up on the zoom. So, you know, that for me is probably one of the Achilles on this camera. I do like the articulating screen. It would be nice if it were a touch screen and if it flipped around. Can I get by without the touch? Absolutely. Once you start using the touch though, you can get spoiled by it. It's just kind of nice to have it. But again, for me, it's just it's not a deal breaker. You know, but the sound of this focus, the zoom, I should say, not focus, but the sound of the zoom, that might be a problem for me. So that takes us to the Canon 70D. Now, my only challenge here is that I'm a long-time Nikon user, right? So I kind of feel like I'm going to the dark side, or I guess if you were Canon, you might, you know, looking at Nikon, you might be thinking, hey, you're going to the dark side, but Canon is a great camera. Matter of fact, back in the film-based days, I used Canon equipment. However, my 18 to 200 zoom lens, along with my 50s and anything else that I have, obviously it's not going to fit over here on the Canon. The other challenge to the Canon is that, well, before I get to the challenge, let's talk about what's really cool about it. Okay, kind of like the Nikon D5500, it's got the articulating touch screen. So again, touch screen's awesome, the articulation of the screen's awesome, you can flip it around, you can do self-composition. What's really cool about the D70, and you'll see a lot of people talk about it, is the focusing mechanism in video. So this focusing mechanism is awesome. It does not hunt. Again, you know, your Sony doesn't hunt either, but this does not hunt either, and the reason for that is really the lens. So you need to have the STM lens, and you know, this is an STM 18 to 55, and this is a kit lens, and I think They have a kit that has the 55 to 200. I'm sure there's some Canon people out there who know. I think that's pretty standard with their kits for this camera anyway. So, but you know, when you have the 18 to 200, you have this really versatile lens. I don't know. I don't think they make an STM 18 to 200. If they did, this would be awesome. You know, for my needs again on my checklist. But the 18 to 55, you know, a lot of people think this is definitely versatile for what they need. I've always found that when I'm using the 18 to 200, I like to be able to zoom in. I'm probably zoomed, you know, 150 to 200 most of the time, just because I'm back and maybe I'm trying to grab something up close, you know, that type of thing. So, you know, again, maybe I would run more with the 55 to 200 on this camera. But yeah, it seems to work out well. And when you go to zoom, because this is a manual zoom, you know, there's no motor, so you're not hearing anything when you zoom. So, you know, I'm leaning a lot more towards this Canon 70D because of the features. Now, you know, they talk about clarity on pictures, and you know, there's some folks that have done reviews between the D5500 and the Canon, and the consensus is that the D5500 has slightly better clarity in its picture, but keep in mind you can post-process, and you know, if you shoot RAW, you handle all that anyway. But yeah, so this camera right here, I think it's a solid camera, and this might kind of be my choice. Or what I might actually do is stay with my current setup, which I've been using for years. I mean, what steered me down this whole path to begin with was to try to get a DSLR-like quality camera and video in one unit. And you know, again, I was really liking the Sony until I hear the noise on the zoom, which in my opinion is problematic, but there's really not, you know, there's not a way to avoid it because of the lens. So, you know, now they make adapters for this, so I could take my 18 to 200 and you get the Nikon adapter and I could use it, but then I lose the autofocus ability, and that doesn't work out too well for me. So, couple quick notables. This right here, I really like using external flashes on my camera, so I have flash triggers and whatnot. This flash right here will work with the Sony A6000. It doesn't do TTL, but I'm okay with that because I usually go manual anyway. I like to have more control over my lights, and it's real simple to do on the back, so it doesn't take much to do that. So I hope this video has helped you out to some extent. I know it's tough because when you're looking for that camera, it's going to cost you a little bit of money, and you know, you might look around going, what is the best camera? So the other thing to think about, this right here is just a Canon PowerShot ELPH series. I've had this one for years. It's a great camera, but it's got a really small sensor in it. It'll shoot pictures and video as well. So it's kind of a quick camera on the go. I'm usually the kind of person though where I think if a camera or if a picture's worth taking, I kind of like to take it with the best equipment that I have. So if you ever see me when I'm out and about and I'm on a trip somewhere, you know, chances are I'm going to have this big camera, this big honking camera with me. But I really like the image quality that comes off this camera too. Again, unless I settle in on the Canon, this Canon seems to fit the bill pretty well, again, for my needs on my checklist. But it means I've got to switch over the ecosystem. You know, I've got to start. I would have to go with different. I have to pick up new lenses, right? And not necessarily a bad thing. It's just you know, a greater expenditure. And then flashes and everything else that was going with my Nikon just won't fly over here. So hope this video helps you. And if it did, give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to, go ahead and subscribe. And I'll probably create some more videos about photography. And if you look at the other videos I've created, it's pretty much across the board. But the channel is called Real World, and it's named that for a reason. It's because this is the real world, and it's not just one single thread. It's whatever comes at me on any given day. If I think people can benefit from it, I'm going to grab my camera and I'm going to fire up a video on it and hope it helps a lot of people. So take care. Have yourself a great day.